What's going on, everybody, and welcome to episode 125 of Bettin N Boozin here on the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Roscoe, and we got a really good one for you guys tonight as we cover the Florida Derby card, late pick 5. Huge Kentucky Derby implications on the line, of course, for a lot of horses. So going to be a really fun show. Welcome in, everybody. Thank you guys all so much for joining in. We greatly appreciate as you scroll on the bottom of the screen right now. If you guys enjoy the content tonight, or if you find yourself coming back on the regular and you aren't subscribed, why not? You're already coming back anyway. So please go down below video player here, hit the like button, and hit the subscribe button if you're enjoying the content, and comment your pick for the 2025 Florida Derby. Again, looks like a lot more wide open than it has been in a couple years past. So definitely going to want to hear what you guys think in the comments section below. Also scrolling on the bottom side of the screen right now, bettinandboozin@gmail.com. Please email me with any questions, comments, or concerns. And our normal podcast schedule is as follows. Every intermittent Mondays, we have Horsin around, so check back in for that. Tuesdays at 9:30 p.m. Eastern is Pacific Horseplayers with Noah, Ryan, and, of course, new member of the family, Jackson, over on Pacific Horseplayers. We did also cover the Florida Derby undercard stakes with a lot of those graded, including the Gulfstream Park Oaks. So if you guys didn't check that out, check it out after this live stream. Of course, every single Wednesday here with Bettin N Boozin at 8 p.m. Eastern, and Picks and Ponies on Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern with Howard, Pete, and Paul. All of those podcasts are also available in audio form. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor is where we post all of those. So whether you're on your way to school, in the gym, anywhere you want to listen to audio only, you can find us over on those three: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. TikTok and Instagram, of course, at Bettin N Boozin Podcast. We'll be posting some short form content for both the Florida Derby and the Arkansas Derby. So go follow us over there if you don't already. And we have a big announcement, guys, because not only do we have our normal HHH Racing Podcast Power Picks that people can subscribe right now over on patreon.com/HHH Racing Podcast, where over the past 4 years, 808 total picks. We have a $2.10 ROI. And not only that, it only costs you $4.99 for a single weekend. You get 3 full tracks of price plays, spot plays, and pick 5 grids, everything you need to be successful on any given Saturday. We got you covered. But now, if you guys buy our meet specific power picks, like we've done Keeneland in the past, which we are doing again this year, Saratoga, which we're doing again this year, as we've done in the past, Del Mar, all those different meets. If you buy all of those normally, we have a very, very special thing for you. We have a new Team HHH power picks that are now available, and how you find those are you go to hhhracingpodcast.com, which is our great website created by Picks and Ponies co-host Pete Visco, and I will bring it up right now to do it along with you guys. So as you can see right now, you just went to hhhracingpodcast.com. This is how it normally look. Go to Power Picks tip sheet, and you'll see specialty power picks, which will bring you to the Team HHH Power Picks tip sheet package. The thing that this is meant for, guys, is, again, for those that buy all of our meet specific packages. This is a very convenient package because if you subscribe to this, you get every single thing, including Keeneland Spring, Kentucky Oaks, Kentucky Derby included, Saratoga, Del Mar, Keeneland Fall, and Breeders' Cup Friday and Saturday, along with our new power picks for international racing, written by great friend of the podcast and astute international player Davey Lane, who you guys know well and true if you guys watch the HHH Racing Podcast on the regular. Again, tons of information in here on the HHH Racing Podcast.com website. If you go again to the specialty power picks, you can scroll through. It has exactly what you need to, payment information, exactly what it includes, a ton of stuff. Again, go to hhhracingpodcast.com and click on specialty power picks under the power picks tab if you guys are interested. You guys are not going to want to miss out. Plus, we give out all the price plays, spot plays, pick 5 grids, as I said. A couple spot plays that we've had over the past couple weeks for our normal power picks would pay for everything on this website. So if you guys want, again, hhhracingpodcast.com, under the power picks tip sheet tab at the top, click specialty power picks for more information. But guys, enough hearing me talk. We have a very special guest coming on along with our 2 normal co-hosts. I say normal, Patrick is out. So happy birthday to Patrick's dad. If he is listening, Patrick is out having dinner with his dad for a birthday dinner, but we will replace him with the man who left us as usual. I'll bring on my two co-hosts, then I will bring on our special guest. Of course, Mr. South Beach himself. Can't have a Florida Derby card without the self-proclaimed Mr. South Beach himself, Charlie Freeman, the man who left us, Noah Maher, host of Pacific Horseplayers. And again, thank you to this man for coming on. We have a very special guest from FanDuel TV, the great Caleb Keller. Caleb, welcome to the show, man. Thanks so much for joining us.
Appreciate it, y'all. Look like the HHH Racing Podcast network had a takeover in Vegas for the NHC, so that looked pretty awesome. I was following along, and one of these days I'd like to get out there for the NHC.
Yeah, it's a ton of fun, and obviously it's Vegas. I mean, it's Vegas and friends. There's nothing that gets better than that, of course. The NHC is just a great time. I've been there the last 3 years and hoping to qualify soon again for next year. And takeover would be a thing because I was out for 2 days. I got food poisoning on Thursday when I got out there. So it was something, that's for sure. But maybe it saved me money from the casino floor. You know, you can argue that as well. But yeah, just a ton of things coming up. Of course, Caleb Keeneland is coming up, where I know I see you a lot and you're always down there giving great information. But for those that somehow, if they don't know who you are, give us a little bit of background about yourself, maybe how you got into horse racing and what you do for FanDuel now.
So I grew up in Floyd's Knobs, Indiana, which is the all the way southern tip, which is essentially Louisville, Kentucky. So growing up in Derby City is like the best time of the year. We had a family reunion a lot of times for Derby Day. Always had a big party. Never really was around horses or thoroughbreds or handicapping until I got into high school, and had a couple friends that were at Churchill Downs, and their parents had boxes, and had a couple buddies who their uncles were good handicappers that I learned from, and always had a love for stats and sports, and really started enjoying it, like the handicapping side in high school. Then went to Indiana University for sports communications. I was always somewhat planning to try to become potentially a play-by-play college basketball announcer, but I always loved TVG. And the summer I graduated, I knew the producer from the Reds was an Indiana grad because we set up a student group to go there. And the producer for the Reds, at the end of the year, they were 1,000,000 games out of 500. He offered me a chance to come and sit with the crew in the booth. And before I went, I studied all the broadcasters, and some of the fans close to Lexington might know Jeff Pecoro, sideline reporter for a long time for the Reds. I saw in his bio that he'd done stuff with the Kentucky Derby. And like that night, I saw him in the break room and we started chatting a little bit about horse racing. And he dropped the idea. He's like, you should try to become like an intern for TVG at Keeneland. And I never really thought about that, but I tried to link it together, and I hit up my friend, Jason Barkley. You guys know, is a very talented trainer. And he set me up with the producer from TVG, and they gave me a 5-day internship working the Breeders' Cup, calling up the works in the morning. And before the Keeneland meet started, their production assistant took a job in Europe, and that opened up, and I became an intern there. And then it went from there. So pretty lucky how it all worked out.
I'll tell you what, a 5-day internship for the Breeders' Cup sounds pretty good, Caleb. I'll tell you that much. But no, that's awesome. Like I said, you've always been a fantastic for me and my wife, especially when we're out there, you always stop and say hi and stuff like that. So of course we really appreciate it. And of course, appreciate you coming on, but we won't keep anyone waiting any longer. I know people are here for Caleb's picks, so we'll get right to the handicapping. This is a very, very good late pick 5 sequence. Again, a lot of the graded stakes are outside the late pick 5, but they're also kind of smaller fields. So we get the listed stakes, but in turn we get bigger fields. So I think that will create a lot more opportunities to find some prices. But we'll go to the chat real quick, and then we will get to the handicapping. Katie, of course, was here. This was from 3:06 p.m. It's 7:11 right now. So Katie, thanks so much for joining the show. Probably came in. Poor Tyler Gaffalione. We will talk about the jockey situation that goes on, of course, without now Tyler and without Junior Alvarado earlier in the week. Christopher, what's up, my friend? What's up, Kyle? Bettin N Boozin crew. Let's talk Florida Derby. Thanks so much, Chris, for joining the show. Greatly appreciate. Terry Frank, of course, is here. Nick Feldman is here. All of the HHH Racing Podcast faithful are all showing out for tonight's show. Ray Cromley is here, of course, as well. If you guys are new here, we have, of course, you can comment everything in the live chat here on YouTube and also on X. It is the bottom right-hand side of the screen as we go through the races. We would love to hear all of your picks for these races. But guys, we'll move on to the first race of the late pick 5 sequence. It is race number 10, and it's the Sanibel Island Stakes, going that weird Gulfstream Park, 7.5 two-turn race for fillies 3 years old, and draws a field of 10 with one also eligible to the outside. Temple City Taboo will be looking to draw into the race. And of course, as you all know, if you've watched Bettin N Boozin, we love covering Gulfstream Park on a Wednesday, which means no morning lines and no numbers in the program. So, gentlemen and Caleb, if you could try and say the number with the horse that you're and the horse's name you're talking about to kind of make it a little bit easier for people following along. But morning line favoritism will definitely be between the number 3, Love Severa, the number 6, and the number 10 to the outside, Classic Q. Caleb, I'm going to go to you first as I bring up the picks right now. Guys, I thought, okay, I probably wasn't being too sneaky, but all of us have the number 3 either in the top 2. That's Love Severa. Caleb, you are the one going against the grain here, although all of us have the number 10 in there somewhere, except for Noah, actually. But the number 10, Classic Q, coming off a really nice race last time.
And we got the 5 races here. You asked for 2 best bets, and one of them is going to come right here with Classic Q. I think this horse has a ton of talent. On debut, they weren't even planning on going to the lead, and the horse had so much natural ability. They pulled Irad to the lead and went 46 flat, 22 flat. Horse had really nice speed. The favorite came and got her top of the stretch, ran a decent 4th. Then in the second start, how about a 17-point buyer increase? Sat there in second. A big key here is there's not a lot of speed in this race. Maybe the 10 blasts to the lead, or maybe the 10 sits off a horse like the 8. But that was a super nice win, 2 starts back. And then last time, they never were settled. Horse was keen, jumping around, pumping the brakes, and still dove down to the inside. And if that race was any bit longer, Horse probably could have won the race. I finished 4th in that lineup. And you go to Rosario, coming off the Tistastic win. Rosario's the best on both ends of the spectrum, either like on the lead or in dead last. And we're going to get the on the lead or very close to it here. So like the talent of the 10, and I don't see a lot of speed.
Yeah, there's actually that's a lot of Joel Rosario always talk on this show about that, either on the lead or all the way in the back, swallowed up. So I definitely am very interested in Classic Q. Charlie, I see you are as well. Actually, Time Forum says something, Charlie, that Caleb doesn't see. They actually list a fast pace for this race, as they have both the 8, as Caleb stated. They also have the 9 up close as well. So the 2 horses, and that's the number 9 Spirited Boss with D'Angelo and whoever obviously takes the mount for Junior Alvarado. So, Charlie, I think the biggest thing, especially with this configuration at Gulfstream, as you well and truly know, there's not a very not a very big run up to that first turn by any means in this race. So if the 2 horses right to the inside are going to go, Classic Q is going to have to find a way. Joel is going to have to find a way to get a good trip. But the nice thing, I think, is that even though Classic Q, like Caleb said, went to the lead in this first race out, I don't necessarily think she needs the lead.
No, I completely agree, and I think Caleb kind of hit it on the head. I thought Classic Q ran into a lot of trouble last time, and I don't really think it was Dylan Davis's fault. It just seemed like, she's a young horse who's still learning, and she couldn't really settle. Also galloped out nicely, continuing to work well. To be honest, I know it was a stat, actually, I think when I had talked with Noah and Ryan when I went on their show about these 7.5 furlong races and how it tends to be a crazy percentage of one within the first 3 posts. So that was one of my main knocks on Classic Q. It was nothing against her herself, but it's just tough at this distance to navigate that post, which is how I ultimately landed on the 3 on top. I don't know if that impacted you guys at all, who also have the 3 on top, but I thought the effort last time out, I know it's a little bit of a layoff. Obviously, the other big thing is now, which is going to unfortunately be a common trend for me, because you guys know how much I like Tyler G, but he is no longer going to be on this one. But I thought she had a really nice second effort, and that was an aggressive but good move from Clement to put her straight into a stakes race second time out. And I think she could take another step forward, and is also a fresh face.
And it is a fresh face. And Noah, to you, I mean, Love Severa, one got checked pretty hard in that last race as well. I won't show the replay of this one, as we want to get through as much as we can. But last time I thought ran a really, really nice race. Obviously, Caleb agrees, has this horse in second. Going to sit a very nice trip. And if there is more speed, maybe with the 8 and the 9, Love Severa could just trip out in a race like this.
Yeah, you pretty much said it. I mean, I think she's probably the most likely winner. She looks to sit a pretty good trip. Like you said, she had trouble early on in that race, was half a length behind Nitrogen, who came back. Is very talented. I think she won the Florida Oaks at Tampa not too long ago. But it just looks like, this filly's headed in the right direction. Again, good trip, working well. And it's easy to trust Clemence in spots like these.
Yeah, and obviously it'll be interesting to see obviously who jumps on this horse, as Gaffleone, of course, has to jump off. Not to mention in the last race, after all that trouble, she only finished half a length to Nitrogen, who's obviously become a very, very nice horse in her own right. As you go to her, once my DRF likes to load, as it never does. She ran an 86, of course, winning the Florida Oaks with a very, very nice trip in that race. So not a lot to knock on Love Savete. Plus, only lightly raced, only 2 races, has the ability to improve as well. Caleb, you have the 6. A lot of us have the 6 somewhere in there. That is, of course, Savetta. Last time out, I thought she kind of had almost every chance to win, and including in the Ginger Brew, just really she makes really good trips for herself, and that's of course being the benefit of tactical speed, but she never really has that winning push, at least from what I see a lot of the time.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree. She's kind of right there without threatening, but she did get the wait a while win, and that was at the exact 7.5 that we're going to go here on Saturday. Yep. Ortiz is putting on a clinic. Earlier today, he won 4 in a row and was a long nose away from winning 5 in a row. The pedigree, obviously, going to be a half to Santine, who was a pretty quick study. And the 6 just kind of puts in the effort every time. So I can kind of carry horses to the wire on days like this and could be tough. I wanted to go back to the pace, though. Yeah. Now, we do see that the 10, 9, and 8, definitely the 8 and 9 were on the lead, and then the 10 has been on the lead. But I looked at the 9, and the 9's kind of one of those big, heavy stompers that was on the synthetic and, was on the lead, but they're going 48 and 2, and it was a state-bred allowance entry level, and there wasn't a lot of pop there. The 8 is a decent breaker, but Frankie's not the one to just put the real gas down sometimes. And the 8 stole the second quarter, 24 and 3. So I just think that Classic Q was a 22 flat on debut. They weren't even asking. And then last time with trouble, I think that if they don't have any trouble and Dylan really wanted to go lead, I think they could have got the lead in 22. So even though the 8 and 9 were on the lead, I feel pretty strong that the 10 can clear these horses or be waiting right off of them.
No, and that's a very good point, because a lot of the time, people could see just a lot of ones on the page, and obviously time form included in this scenario and Bunratty Manor, the 8 is also cross entered, obviously working down at Palm Meadows. So you'd assume that she's going to run here, but of course, keep an eye on Saturday for your scratches and changes. But again, time form has cold figures denoting, you mentioned stealing the second quarter, going 48 and 3. Maybe it's not exact, or 47 and 2 after going 29 and 22 and 4. So there's many different aspects that go into this that maybe you could be completely right. Classic Q goes to the lead, and if she does her best running, it might be over just from the start, especially with Rosario Board, who has shown the ability to be aggressive, and especially in spots like this from the outside draw. So many different ways you can go. Obviously, 3 of us are going with Love Savete, so we'll see if she can end up tripping out, although I do like Caleb's pick as well with Classic Q, and if she does get the lead, I honestly would love that even more, and you'll see that with best bets, of course, later. I'm going 3-10-6. Caleb's going 10-3-6. Charlie's going 3-10-1. Noah's going 3-1-6. And the 1 is, of course, Candy Quest. We didn't get to talk about, but a nice runner looking on the improve for Mark Cassie and Edwin Gonzalez, who's working very, very well. Guys, we'll move on to race number 11, and that is the Army Mule Stakes. And this is the second off the layoff for what's going to be the pretty heavy favorite in this race for Knightsbridge. This is going 7 furlongs for older males, and you'll see, again, number 4, Knightsbridge, most likely your pretty heavy morning line favorite, and we'll put up the picks right now. And all of us are going with Knightsbridge but one, and I'm sure everyone can take a wild guess on who that is. But of course, I picked against White Abaro yesterday, so I could be completely moronic there. Noah, I like that you're taking a shot here with a horse that I think probably has the best chance of beating the number 4 Knightsbridge with the number 3 implementation.
Well, it's kind of the same thinking as White Abaro, right? Because this is the first time Knightsbridge has really come back within a considerable amount of time, which is a little weird. It hasn't, how Bill Mott's kind of campaigned him, which I guess could be a good thing. The weird thing I thought is that they've got the Commonwealth at Keeneland. I believe that's next weekend, and he wasn't even nominated for that. So I wonder if, this is just, he's working well and they're kind of throwing him in just because they think he's ready to go. With that being said, he was on the lead last time. I don't know. I think he might he'll probably get it again. I don't know exactly what time form says. And he got it last time and it was pretty quick. I don't know. I think some horses are going to press him. You've got Saez on Loco Barrio on the inside. And then there's some other horses at the outside I think are going to show some speed. So I don't think he's going to really have it his own way up there. And I don't know. I just get a weird vibe with him. Alvarado's obviously not riding. We're going to see he picks up the mount. The two races within a couple weeks. It's not a short gap, but it's something that he hasn't quite done. And I think this is just kind of the spot to beat him.
I mean, it could be completely fair because I also thought about that because, again, that was my thinking with White Barrio yesterday is, granted, White Barrio is a little bit of a different scenario where he absolutely blasted the Pegasus field, and now all of a sudden he shows up in a $165,000 race at Gulfstream again. This, obviously, Knightsbridge ran well off the layoff, Caleb, but didn't necessarily probably run what he's very capable of. But my point is that I actually think he's going to get the lead. I think he's a lot faster than a lot of these. Kind of follows the same thinking as you're thinking from Classic Q last race is even though there's other horses that have shown early foot, I think he might just be faster and second off the layoff. Maybe last time was just a little bit of a freshening. I think he might just be frankly better than a lot of these horses in here.
Yeah, I think that this horse reminds me a lot of a horse from last year for Belmont. We're talking about Sela. Because Sela was an ultra talent for a top outfit who won big at Churchill, and she came off the layoff and was 1-2 and got beaten in allowance. Now she got beat to Best Dream, and then we found out that Best Dream was probably the best horse last summer until Soul of an Angel arrived. But last year, Mott just gave Sela the first race, got beat as the favorite, pretty close second, and this is not, like you said, not a ton of pace in here. I would like to see Knightsbridge pull back. To me, I think there's a rating quality that the horse was fresh off the layoff and kind of pulled himself to the lead because he's 1-5 against the field. But the horse sat in fourth and the Perryville closed up, actually relaxed beautifully on debut before winning by a pole. So, Knightsbridge, a little step forward, and you could be talking about one of the early looks at a race like the Forego.
Yeah, and Caleb, I will ask you the same question that Noah brought up is, does it kind of rub you one way or another that he didn't end up going to a place like Keeneland where they have these types of 7 furlong races, which is probably exactly what this horse wants to do for obviously a lot more money. Does that rub you one way or another?
It is interesting. It would be a nice landing spot, but at the same time, Bill Mott has done his best work in the Breeders' Cup. And he's got that long-term view of the fall for the absolute peaking, which is kind of in a way held him back in the Derby. Mott, if they would have got after these horses, the spring chickens a little earlier, then he might have 1 or 2 more derbies. But he takes that long range view. There's no need to accrue money or status when you're for a Godolphin or a Juddmonte. They're looking to just build to the grade ones. So I think that he's smart. Like the allowance is a condition that not enough trainers take advantage of, but Mott does.
Yeah, and I think that's very fair. A lot of us have mentioned on this show that, Bill Mott, especially something like first time out, he's definitely not aggressive. Obviously, Knightsbridge won by 10.5 at Churchill, but he's not one to crank early in the year. And yeah, he usually does get better as of late. So I think that's a very, very good point to bring up. Charlie, I want to bring you in here because you and actually Caleb has this horse in second. You have this horse in third. I believe it's number 9. Was it Play Me a Tune or is it Inveigled?
It's Play Me a Tune.
Okay, so real quick, obviously another one that's going to sit a little bit, just off the speed. What'd you like most about Play Me a Tune?
Yeah, just a fresh face to throw in the money. Almost put this one in second. I just thought the effort. I mean, I was there that day, and boy, was that a tough day for me to watch White Barrio lose. But I thought Play Me a Tune, actually, when I went back to watch that race, since I was obviously only focused on the top 2 at the time, ran a really decent effort, stayed on the whole time, and just ultimately wasn't good enough to go up against horses like Mufasa and White Barrio, where if you put either of them in this field, like what would they be? So gets big relief. And what I just thought was really interesting and impressive was this isn't a horse for big time or major connections. And they still had the confidence, to throw this one in on a first time dirt race in a race this difficult. And I'm not saying 17-1 by any means this horse was taking a lot of money, but at the same time, I feel like when you look at the connections and you look at it was first time dirt and who this one was running against, I feel like you sort of would have expected him to maybe be, 30-1, 40-1. And he kind of ran the part of a horse who was taking at least somewhat money. We were like, wow, he was 16-1 against proven dirt horses. And I thought he ran a really respectable effort and then came back to Turfway Park and had a nice effort. Seems to be working well in the dirt again, that they had the confidence to go back here again. And I just think also connections-wise, you're going to get a square price on this one still, I think. And, if I get a nice horse underneath Knightsbridge, I think this one certainly fits.
Saying, Caleb, last thing I'll bring up, then we'll move on. From a betting standpoint, you play pick 4s, pick 5s, as a lot of our viewers do. If you can beat a horse like Knightsbridge in this sequence, I mean, your price goes up exponentially. And if you have a horse like Play Me a Tune, who's probably going to be somewhere in, the middling price range, I mean, you could get upwards of 5, 8, 10x on your payouts if Knightsbridge loses.
The Play Me a Tune, to stick with the 9 for just a second, guys.
Yeah, of course.
In the race that Charlie was talking about, I mean, I've got the Mr. Prospector as the best race that was run in the month of December, which obviously is not known for running good races. But, there's no stars in the Losal Futurity or the Philly race. She Feels Pretty was pretty good in the grade 1. Raging Torrent got the Malibu. But in the end, best race in December, Mufasa had the only sub 120 7-furlong race I can ever remember at Colonial, 119 and change. White Abari, we know what he did. Lil Vic comes back at 8-1, wires the field. And Play Me a Tune was an even 5th, decent 86 wire. And you got to say, if they ran this exact same field at Woodbine, probably a strong case to be made that the 9 would be the favorite even over Knightsbridge. So, the track means a ton in the price, and the horse basically never run a bad race.
Yeah. I think that's fair, and people, I think, are going to look at that 86 in the Mr. Prospector, granted who, this horse ran against, but only dirt effort, 5th, probably will look over that in a way that, maybe they think, oh, it's a synthetic horse. They're trying the dirt again for, a second time, didn't run well the last time. Maybe they'll get a little bit of an inflated price, too, on a horse like Play Me a Tune. So I think that's a very good point to bring up there as well. But guys, we'll move on to race number 12 here as we get deep into this late pick 5. I'm going 4-3-8. Caleb's going 4-9-3. Charlie's going 4-3-9. Noah's going 3-4-8. Guys, moving on to race number 12, which of course is the middle leg of the late pick 5. It is the Sand Springs Stakes, going 1 mile and the 16th on the turf for older fillies and mares, and draws a full field of 12, as a lot of these races normally do. Morning line favorite is going to be a pretty competitive one, I would say. Moving on up to the inside for Safi, Breath Away on the number 6 hole, 5 Towns all the way to the outside and In Our Time as well. Both of those getting pretty tough posts as well. As I'll switch over. And this is the one race that surprised me, guys, because of course, especially none of the guys on the screen, I get the picks. I put all my picks in beforehand. No one sees anything. We're all going with the number 6 Breath Away. And for me personally, this is a horse that I've chased a lot, especially down in New York. Just seems to never get the job done fully. But Gulfstream is one of those tracks that this horse has done that, Caleb, and should get a pretty nice setup, as there looks like a pretty decent amount of pace in here.
Yeah, what a race to have the same picks. And doesn't seem like the horse be the favorite, no?
It's going to be close, but I don't see why. If Breath Away was the favorite, I wouldn't exactly. I wouldn't be. I can't think of the word, but I wouldn't be. God, I can't think of. Thank you, shocked. Jesus Christ. Maybe
the 4, but it is a cool exercise doing it without the morning lines, that's for sure. But I can tell you, there's been 2 times this year where I'm playing the Gulfstream mandatory pick 6, and for whatever reason, both times I got booted out by Dylan Davis. And not like I was against Dylan Davis, just didn't have the horse. And I realized, I'm like, you know what? I haven't really played a lot of Aqueduct over the years. And now that Dylan Davis has come to Gulfstream, I think he's shown everybody that he is a real riding talent. And in a race that's pretty wide open, I'm looking to see the jockey that can see through the trip. Irad's horse hasn't won in like 2 years, Be My Sunshine, and others are kind of coming up in class. So horse has kind of been right there at the wire, plus Dylan Davis and Clement. We'll take it.
I mean, we'll absolutely take it. And of course, it'll be very interesting to see how the betting shapes out on this one, Charlie. But Breath Away really is another one of those horses that never really runs a bad race. Those last 2 in the Swine River, Be Your Best, who's come back to run very well, of course, and then losing the Endeavor to Saffron Moon. I honestly don't think Breath Away ran bad in that race at all. Just got beat probably by a better horse and just lost out both 2nd and 3rd by a very close margin. So Breath Away, especially getting a very nice setup in here, hopefully will be a little closer than she was last time. And if she definitely has a big chance to win.
Yeah, I can't. I got to be honest. I'm still like at a loss of words and shocked that we all have the same horse on top, because the one note I wrote down is like you could legitimately go like eight deep in this race. I mean, there are so many horses to pick. Breathaway for me was like what we've already sort of talked about personally. Is like you said, Kyle. Same thing for me. She's one I've chased, and that Be Your Best race. Actually, that was the last leg for me, and I needed her there, so that hurt. But yeah, she doesn't run a bad effort. She should get the setup. Dylan Davis is getting better and better at Gulfstream. And I just thought from the ability and figures and just that, like you kind of talked about, you just know what you're going to get with this one is why I had this one there. It's the same reason actually I ended up having the 12 in our time in second. Again, another one that's going to have a jockey change inevitably. But this is one where, you know me, I hate speed horses. I hate horses on the front. But this is one who every single time I bet against, she scares the crap out of me, because I'm always like, oh, wow, they're going fast. She's just going to gas out and I'm fine. And then she just fights like hell and stays up. And yeah, she doesn't always win, but you know she's going to be right there. And if you look at the names she's run against, she absolutely makes sense here. And then I know we're trying to only do top two, but I just want to be really quick because everyone in the chat is talking about this horse.
Yeah.
The number 3 for me is the complete wild card. To be honest with you, because you know I love my closers, I wanted to put this horse on top. I just don't have the stones to do it, and I'm not, so no one I can agree on for sure. What we don't agree on much is neither of us are the biggest Jack Sisterton fans. But this horse, if you go back and watch this replay, again, the layoff's certainly a concern, but as Caleb touched on earlier, it's not a bad thing to have Rosario on board and is working forwardly. And my God, was this effort first time in America a serious one? And something I talk about all the time is how I normally draw a line through Euro's first efforts in America, because they normally struggle and need a race. But this one did not, was in hand and just blew by the field like they were maiden claimers when they weren't. And there's some next out winners in that one. So I think this just speaks volumes, though, to how wide open this race is. There's probably another 3 or 4 horses I can make a case for.
Yeah, and obviously she came from well out of it last time out. The layoff, of course, is the concern. She hasn't run since August of 24 at Saratoga. So Jack Sisterton, not exactly the greatest off of these types of layoffs, but if she definitely has the talent as she showed in that maiden special weight. But of course, going against winners for the first time off a layoff, she's going to need to have to take a step up, but there's no reason to why she can't. No, I'll get you in here a little bit. You have Be My Sunshine in second, as well as Moving On Up. So feel free to talk about what you liked about those two.
Yeah, I'll start with Be My Sunshine, who I guess in theory is probably the class of the race. I think you can toss the race last time. Safi tried to stretch her out 3 turns, didn't really work out too well. But she just kind of run evenly in both the Swanee River and the Endeavor. She was right there with Breath Away 2 back when Breath Away was close and came from last against the Saffron Moon. Blinkers on, I think, should help her maybe a little bit more forward. Irad should have her probably just off the pace. This is kind of the time we talk about it. I think I'm going to give her one more try. And then if she isn't able to get it done, then I will be filing, of course. And then down to the 1, I'm glad you, Kyle, and Kyle, do you have the 1?
Yep, I do.
Yeah, you do have the 1. You and Caleb both have the 1, because I was a big fan of this horse last time. We covered on our Coast to Coast show a couple weeks ago. Coming back quick, which I think is a little vote of confidence from Safi. Edgard stays. She will be close. She's been working like a monster in the morning. But I'm not too worried about the coming back quick, because she had been off since October. It just seems like she's kind of on the up and up. And whether she's able to step up her game to this quality, I guess we'll find out.
And Caleb, there's one thing that we talk about on this show, and it's also pace scenarios and horses getting first run. You'd expect Moving On Up to be ahead of horses like Breath Away and others that are going to be coming from, especially in Charlie's 3. I mean, there's a ton of horses that are going to be deep closers in this race. It's really nice when you have a horse like Moving On Up, who, again, no pun intended, might be moving on up through her 4-year-old year, second time out here, and should be in front of those horses. Maybe if she is that good, they might not be able to catch her if she gets first jump.
It could be setting up for one of the perfect trips of the afternoon, because this should be a stretched out field. The 2 gets the rail. The 2 might be the fastest, but then you got the 12 and the 10 have been at 5 lengths at one point. The 8's coming out of 21 flat sprint. So this is a group that, when I look at the 1, the last 4 wins, the horse sat third, and third at one point. So the horse can sit a sweet stalking trip, like you said, post up right there on the fence with Zayas. Has won a lot of races and get a jump on the closers. So I thought that the fact that the horse can pull back is really a nice key to have here, especially from the fence.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, we talk about that type of rail position because, again, mile on the 16th, you do have a little bit bigger of a run up to that first turn, but still wanting to be forwardly placed in these types of turf races at Gulfstream Park could be paramount. And I think, especially with the turf getting more to, as we joked about yesterday, getting more to derf as the meet goes on. So wanting to be a little bit closer has been a big thing coming down the stretch here of this championship meet at Gulfstream Park. So definitely moving on up could just be, again, the trip of all trips in a race like this. I'm going 6-1-11. Caleb's going 6-1-4. Charlie's going 6-12-3. Noah's going 6-4-1. Guys, moving on to race number 13, the penultimate leg of the late pick 5. It is the Appleton Stakes. But before we get to that, guys, we have a ton of people watching. We greatly appreciate your viewership. You guys weren't here at the start of the show. Going to plug one more time so that we can get it in and make the boss happy. The Team HHH Power Picks are available, guys. And again, they're through HHH Racing Podcast.com. If you go there and you select the Power Picks tip sheet and go to Specialty Power Picks right here, you can see everything's included with this subscription. All of our meet-specific Power Picks, the brand new International Racing Power Picks with Davey Lane, very good friend of the podcast and very good international race punter, Kentucky Oaks, Kentucky Derby Day, Breeders' Cup Friday and Saturday, all included, along with Keeneland Spring, Keeneland Fall, Saratoga, and Del Mar. Again, well worth it. Only need a couple of power plays, basically, is what we call them, to be able to get this paid for yourself. Again, all of the information is on hhhracingpodcast.com under the Specialty Power Picks tab. So please go check that out if you guys are interested. Again, onto the Appleton penultimate leg, goes 1 mile on the turf for older males, draws another big field of 11. And that's why this card is so great. Bringing the picks on the screen right now. 3 of us, again, are going with the same horse. Caleb, you are going off a little bit of the beaten path with a horse that should be a pretty nice price in here. The number 4, Portofino. The rest of us are going with the most likely morning line favorite in the number 9, Major Dew, which I know Charlie and I have always been massive fans of this horse. But Caleb, the floor is yours, my friend. Again, what should be a nice price, and I know you have a big opinion here.
Yeah, let's give me my second to 2 best bets here for Portofino. And I was talking about this recently, how if I think about the best setup to win a horse race, it would be very specific. 2 turns on the turf, inside post, lone speed. And when I'm looking at my man Scotty's Equinedge here, he's got Portofino as having an 81 speed. And the next closest would be like low 60s, a horse like Dr. Jeff or Axstone, these kind of closing sprinter types. And I can just see Paco Lopez sitting up there with those hands real low on the lead, sharp break. You got some horses back there that might be pumping the brakes a little bit because it's going to be such a controlled tempo. And Portofino's a serious horse. I mean, they don't just hand out 94 buyers on the synthetic at Gulfstream. The 43 and 55, the 9th place effort was actually sneaky super. Portofino was off a bit slow in that loaded Coppola race. I was chewing up ground way out there in the middle. And the 2 route tries have actually been decent. 3rd in the handicap and then a close 3rd on the synthetic. And okay, Speedster, a little bit of speed, but not for love, the damn side of California Chrome. And I looked a little deeper. How about it goes into Ireland and even Germany? Yeah. They had that Tietlan that won over the weekend for Sheriffs, and all the Germany pedigree, they can run forever. So the 4's got dating back to like Irish and German pedigree, not a lot of speed. Paco with a quick break in the rail could be real down.
No, and actually you sent me this. I had to relook at who this was, and I did give a look to this horse as well because, you know, coming from 5 furlongs, it's not easy to stretch out, being that how quick he is. Excuse me. I'll take a drink for that in a second, as we do on this show. Take a drink whenever we get the gender wrong, which happens more often than we like to admit. But Portofino definitely makes sense, especially if she's on the lead he's on the lead by himself. So definitely makes a ton of sense. I really like that pick. Again, a horse that should be probably a bigger price than he should be on the day. Noah, going to you next. All of the rest of us are on Major Dude. He's done absolutely nothing wrong. He loves the Gulfstream track, 4 for 5 in the top 2, running in both grade 1s in the Pegasus World Cup turf, grade 2s, winning grade 2s at Gulfstream. Again, he's run well all over the U.S. and looks poised for another big one here.
Yeah, he's just classy. I mean, I'm kind of going with my gut over my head because my gut tells me that he's the best horse in the field. But my head is telling me that he should have never lost that race last time because he was inside the whole time. Whoever the 7 was on the lead, drifted out wide, and it looked like he had a truck hole that he could have gone through. Yeah. Got the lead, and then couldn't quite hold out Fort Washington. But there were 3 or 4 of them on the line. But I think my thing is I think Irad's probably going to take him back this time. I think he's a little better with the target. He might have been a little too close last time. So if someone goes out there with Caleb's 4, maybe the 7, they had a 7 on time for him. I think the 1 stretching out, Nick Feldman mentioned, could maybe show a little speed. Maybe we'll set a couple targets so that Major Dude can kind of get back to his preferred style.
And Charlie, in a race like this where Portofino might be low in speed in this race, you want to have a horse. If you don't like him, you want to have a horse like Major Dude who can sit right in behind a horse like that. Because if either Portofino can't get this mile in the 16th or just gets pressured, Major Dude's going to have first run on him.
Yeah, no, 100%. I also, again, I just think I don't entirely disagree with Noah. This is a horse I have been a big advocate and fan of. And yeah, I needed him in that race. And I think Noah was spot on. As much as I like to hype up the horses that I've backed for a while, I also have to recognize that, yeah, Major Dude had no excuses, got the trip and just couldn't get it done. That being said, also, you look at a lot of the big names that Major Dude has been running against in these last 3, and there's just no one like that in this field. And I do agree with Noah. I think Major Dude is at his best when he's about 2 to 2.5 lengths off the lead. And then when they're turning for home, still has at least, I'd say, another length and a half to 2 lengths to go. So he has that target to go by, because it did kind of look like we're in the, the Fort Lauderdale. He was, turning from a little over a length behind and then just had that killer instinct and got through that gap and got by. He just didn't really show it last time. It almost looked like he just got to it and was like, oh, cool, I'm here. And then just didn't have that same kick that we saw there, or the kick that he showed in Keeneland in that allowance race where he turned for home, saw someone to go by, and then just left no doubt to go by. Grant, I know he only won by, a neck in that Fort Lauderdale, but if he didn't run into the trouble he did, it would have been more. And then going into my other horse, another horse I've been a fan of for a while is Ice Chuck a lot, the 11 at the bottom, who I think 3 of us have in second and all of us have somewhere in the money. This is one who's just has a fantastic resume. I mean, you want to talk about running against a bunch of serious horses. Obviously, last time out had that iconic win in the poker at a huge price that no one saw coming at all. Iconic is one way to put it, yeah. That's how I see it, especially for a horse who I normally like because of his ability to sit and then go by. When I saw this one go to the lead, I immediately was like, oh, we could be in for something sneaky here because it's not where he's supposed to be. Also is one that broke my heart. Granted, in my eyes, I know we joke about Joe Rosario, but to me, gets a huge upgrade over the last time I needed him at Gulfstream from Paco Lopez. So that's a big plus for me as well. I think the big knock on him is just going to be the layoff and that he is 7. But if he does get back to that form and if he can sit a little closer, I kind of think he could sit a similar trip to Major Dude. And the other thing that I feel like we have to talk about is just how incredible Mark Cassidy has done at this Gulfstream meet. I mean, he's really made a name for himself, specifically at Gulfstream. Obviously, everyone knows who he is. But I mean, at Gulfstream, it's not normally the track where you're like, oh, I got to bet Cassie. And I can genuinely say as Mr. South Beach who bets there all the time, I now have to go out of my way to look out for Mark Cassidy horses to play, which also we saw earlier in the card.
The self-proclamation comes back again, ladies and gentlemen. But this is a move, Caleb, that Mark Cassidy doesn't normally do. He doesn't put these horses that are coming off these long layoffs. Granted, obviously, Ice Chocolatte's very good at what he's done. Doesn't usually put horses in these types of stakes coming back. You could see last time this horse came in off a layoff, he ran at an optional claiming at Gulfstream last year. Only 47 times in the last 5 years, and that's out of 6,498 races for Mark Cass. He's only done it 47 times and has only won 5 of those 47. So obviously big vote of confidence coming here for Ice Chocolat, but the draw does him no favors, and it'll be interesting to see where he sits. Probably just in behind Major Dude would be what I see here.
Now, the horse has definitely got some run. He's been kind of fun to follow, but at the same time, he's probably one of the most maddening horses around because, so for 2 years, his only win was on an allowance race, and literally nobody was playing on January 27th at Gulfstream Park. So for 2 years, the guy's in these key stakes races, always like he's right there. He's got a chance. He's giving you excuses. He's got a late kick and just never delivered until literally the whole world jumped off in the grade 3 poker at 24-1. So horses like that kind of like back pay. I guess some people might have stuck with him, but Ice Chocolat, look, the 96 buyer, is pretty on par. It's what he started last year with. It's what he left us with. It's kind of right there. Major Dude's got the 97. So I want to have him on the ticket, but the 11 has led down a lot of people over the last couple of years. And then back to Major Dude. Noah was talking about how Mott could have taken Knightsbridge to the Commonwealth. Well, thinking about it, Major Dude could have been a candidate here for the Maker's Mark Mile, which Pletcher's done better at Keeneland over the years than people think. He had Jack Milton. He had American Patriot. He had Up to the Mark, who was third to Master of the Seas, probably one of the best runnings. So he probably was a little torn on Major Dude. 3 straight career best 97 buyers. They could have gone to Keeneland. Probably would have been in that 5 to 8 to 1 range. So definitely going to be live in the ungraded Appleton.
Yeah, it's a very fair point. And the fact, I know Howard and Matt Miller specifically are laughing about that, because every time that Master of the Seas Up to the Mark race gets brought up, I lose a piece of my heart, because that race absolutely killed me for Up to the Mark beating Master of the Seas in that race. But I agree. And it's not like Major Dude hasn't run well at Keeneland. That allowance race at Keeneland he ran in was very, very good. And that was off a little bit of a layoff from the 4-star Dave. So I completely agree with you. Again, I think he might just be better. And again, talk about 7-year-olds off the layoff. I know that's Howard's a big advocate for picking against horses when they do those types of layoffs at higher ages. However, none of us have him in front, but I think Ice Chocolat's at least one that has to be respected. And there's a bunch of others you could argue in here, at least for minor placings. Abrumar for Edgar Zayas, Safi Joseph is one of those. Obviously Portofino that Caleb has on top with the pace. Axthelm, a lot of people have brought up that he's interesting. And who can forget the Gulfstream Park specialist Fly the W? And that's always even though as a big Sox fan trying to just beat the worst record in MLB history this year with opening day coming up tomorrow, Fly the W is one I always like to bring up, just of how cool of a story that one is. But guys, we'll move on, of course, to what everyone wants, which is the Grade 1 Florida Derby. But for race 13 of the Appleton Stakes, I'm going 9-11-7. Caleb's going 4-9-11. Charlie's going 9-11-7 as well, and Noah's going 9-11-6. Guys, on to the Grade 1 Florida Derby. A ton of hype coming into here. Obviously, you have Sovereignty in here to be ridden by Manny Franco. Now, I think is a very big that's been a very big thing all week, obviously, with his success with Godolphin, with horses like Immersive. Makes a ton of sense for him climbing up aboard. You have a horse I've been very high on for a long time, Tappan Street. Bob Baffert chips in Matticat Road as I bring up the Equibase right now. Be very interesting to see how the morning line shapes out behind Sovereignty, of course, who's most likely going to be your morning line favorite. Disruptor is a horse that's very big on the come up for Irad and Pletcher. And I mean, there's a ton of different horses that you can argue underneath, at least in this spot. And I'll bring up the picks right now. And Caleb, my friend, going with the number 8, Matticat Road. None of us have the horse. Actually, Charlie does have the horse in second. I was going to say none of us have this horse anywhere. But I do understand the pick, and I'm interested to hear what you like most about the Bob Baffert shipper, the number 8, Matticat Road.
So on Tuesdays, we do a top 5 list. And going back to even January 1st, we rolled out our top Derby top 5. And I didn't want to put Barnes on top or want to make it a bit of a thought-provoking list. And I put Matticat Road number 1 here to start the year. Because when I'm looking at Bob Baffert and how he's treated this horse, he has shown supreme confidence. I covered the Barnes debut race at Churchill, and Bob told me that, okay, he hasn't been there for 3 years. He's obviously going to send a winner for a maiden race to kind of lift the seal, shake some hands, get it over with. Well, the first horse he entered was Matticat Road, and the horse was on the also eligible list. I don't even think he shipped there, so they diverted, and then a couple weeks later, Barnes comes to hand. He's ready to do that. Then he goes to the Bob Hope, and I look back on Formulator. In the last 5 years, as many $1 million, $3 million horses as Baffert's had, he's never in the last 5 years entered a horse into a graded stakes. And the horse had a nice second to Bullard, was not tired in the stretch. Then they go to opening day at Santa Anita. It's a strong maiden special weight. Sen Saba was working good. And the horse came from off the pace, which Bafferts don't really do a lot. Then we go to the Robert B. Lewis. We're all going to stack up in file, and nobody's going to change. And the horse made a pretty nice move in the turn and actually easily got past Rodriguez, who was the first 3-year-old that gave us 100 buyer this year. And, okay, ran third. third beating 6, not looking good, but don't forget that Mystic Dan was third beating 6 in last year's Arkansas Derby. Then they go to the Rebel, and what I think could play in with this horse is that I think they could come from off the pace. That if this horse could get to the, I could see him sitting in like 12th and having some big time run. Good second to Cole Battle, way in front of Tistastic. Larger lead is the comment. He was going 45 against 3 speed horses and pulling away basically at every call. If you look at his pedigree, it's like lit up with Raised Native, very inbred, but has so many of one of the best sires ever. He worked 4 bullets in the morning before the debut and then worked another bullet. And this is a little secret I picked up from Baffert. When he works a horse alone, American Pharoah almost always worked alone. Arrowgate worked alone a lot. Like, it takes a real dynamo to work alone. Everybody thought that Citizen Bull or Barnes would go to the Rebel, but Baffert sent Medicat Road. Now he's going to the Florida Derby basically for the first time in forever. So the way that Baffert, Churchill debut, Graded Stakes debut, going to the Rebel, going to the Florida, he really feels like this is his hidden ace.
And I honestly, I love that you brought up a ton of points in there. The one point I was going to bring up was Bob Baffert with shipping to Gulfstream Park. He has not shipped a horse to Gulfstream Park. He shipped 2 last year with Hijazi and National Treasure, but of course that's for Pegasus World Cup Day. He shipped Defunded in 2023, also for Pegasus World Cup Day. He hasn't shipped a horse for the Florida Derby. He's only shipped 4 horses to Gulfstream Park in the last 5 years. The last time for the Florida Derby was 2021 with Spielberg, who might still be running to this day. I'm not sure, but someone might have to fact check me on that. But it's honestly, I take that as a supreme vote of confidence, Caleb, like you do. I know I don't have the horse anywhere because I wanted to put Disruptor in my top 3, but Medicat Road for me is the clear 4th. And if he does, obviously it'll be interesting to see now who jumps aboard Medicat Road with Tyler Gaffleone off. Obviously, people are probably going to be jumping at the fact to try and ride for Bob Baffert with a horse that probably has a very likely chance, very good chance of being in the mix in this race, let alone winning it. So can completely see where you're going with Medicat Road, and probably going to be second, third, 4th choice. It's going to be a pretty interesting price shakeout behind Sovereignty, as I said before.
It's been weird over the years, like you mentioned, that Baffert doesn't go to Gulfstream Park. Because his first ever big win was early 90s, Breeders' Cup Sprint, 30 slews, wins at Gulfstream Park, and Gulfstream is a speed track, which would suit the Baffert runners. I think mostly what plays into that, though, over the decades is Baffert's given a lot of respect to Pletcher and Mott, who basically win all those big races every year. He can kind of dominate the West Coast. That's their yard down there in Florida, and hasn't really tried them too often. Medicat Road also is very similar to Tistastic that just won the Louisiana Derby for a couple reasons. Number one, going out for a power trainer, but has not been revered as the power trainer's best horse. Number two, Thoroughgraph speed figure wise, they both are riding exactly a streak of 7s, which isn't great. But if Tistastic can bump off the 7 into that, then I'm guessing a Baffert could do the same. And lastly, Tistastic and Medicat Road cannot keep the same jockey. Like, so they're not at the high pecking order where they keep on getting new jockeys. Looks like Mike Smith now is going to take them out because, unfortunately,
yes, that's correct.
You have a bad injury to his ankle. Mike Smith basically in soft retirement. I don't know if I love that, but maybe he can put on a magical ride. But I really just hope he can finish 3rd. Medicat Road, I definitely think he can win. But if he can just get 3rd, if this horse gets to the Derby and comes off the pace is a big key, I could really see him having an upset chance.
And this is one of those things that, again, people see Baffert, they see the last time in the Rebel. I do agree with you. I mean, look at that main special weight win, granted going 6, but I don't think he needs the lead necessarily by any means. I think he could be good coming off the pace. And if he does, especially with blinkers off, maybe trying to relax the horse a little bit, Medicat Road could be one to win at not a favorite for Bob Baffert. And that's the one that people look back on. They're like, well, how the hell did I not have Baffert in a race like this? So Caleb, of course, good luck with Medicat Road. Charlie, I'll go to you next. No, obviously feel free to hit on anything. Found a youth winner. Sovereignty had a huge run last time out. A lot of people liked him in that race, including myself. Not on top. I actually had River Thames on top, who we ended up just beating by a neck. But Sovereignty makes all the a lot of sense in this race. There is a pretty decent amount of speed in this race. And if Medicat Road does end up going, it only injects more pace into it. So should set up pretty well for Sovereignty.
Yeah, briefly on Medicat Road, just because I was the only other one who had the horse. I mean, I think Caleb nailed a lot of it on the head. I normally am biased towards Gulfstream horses at Gulfstream and normally would fade backward in a spot like this. But I think another thing, I don't know if Caleb mentioned it or not, but the blinkers off is just another thing I like because that probably indicates what Caleb was talking on, that maybe this one can learn how to, rate more and not have to be on the lead, which I agree with. As someone, I don't know if I've said it on the show, but I know we've talked about it behind the scenes, that has a future on Sandman. I remember watching that setup going on and thinking immediately, I wasn't even thinking about Cole Battle. I thought Medicat Road was my main threat. I saw the fractions. I was like, oh, this is just going to be that bad Baffert that fades back by a million and Sandman's just going to romp by. And then Medicat Road just would not go away. And I was seeing the fractions. And I'm like, how is this horse still there? So I completely agree with everything Caleb said. The works are there. I think this horse has a ton of talent. Obviously, the Mike Smith from Tyler G is a massive downgrade and a big concern. But I still think there's enough talent there. And I agree. I think this is one that you look out for going forward as long as he gets enough points regardless. Now, going into Sovereignty, this was a horse I have liked for a very long time. On the debut, I had bet this horse and rookie card. Then after that, runs into a monster in Prater and only loses by a neck, which is massive to be that close against Prater, who is another very talented horse that we can talk about another time. Obviously, came back to romp at Gulfstream. And then after that, goes into this Fountain of Youth race. And, I had this horse on top, but a big thing that made me scared was all the stuff we were hearing, everybody was just talking about that Sovereignty wasn't supposed to be ready for this spot. Would he do any, how much running would he do? He was only 75% or 80%. And then, I get that he got the setup, but he still ran an incredible performance, and it was not easy to do what he did against plenty of other horses. Yeah, I would say, I thought I saw somebody in the chat mentioned Chris Couples, great viewer of ours. Still ended up getting that job done. Was an impressive performance and win. I think obviously the one concern for both the horses that I have in my top two is we don't, it's going to be two new jockeys now, going to get Manny Franco. But I just think he could keep building on it. And I saw some people in the chat saying this is their Derby horse. And I completely understand. This is one I wanted to if the price was there. But Sovereignty really hasn't put a step wrong. It has all the makes of a serious horse. And I think is at the very least the safest bet to run very well in this race.
I mean, no, I couldn't agree more. There's not too much to hit on with Sovereignty. Obviously, you have my horse that I've been very high on for a while in second. But Sovereignty, again, with a setup, Bill Mott, obviously you're getting Manny Franco now. Just all the signs point to this horse being as good as he is and going to run another big one, maybe even eclipse the 100.
Well, it's funny because it seems like there was just about every red flag last time, off the long layoff. He was cold on the board. I think it was either 8-5, 9-5 morning line favorite. Almost went off at 7-2 that day. Didn't have a good work going in, the short run into the first turn when he was coming from way off of it. So there was just about every reason to bet against him last time. And he was still able to get the job done. Now he's going to be fully cranked. Now there's still speed to set it up for him. We're going to see if Manny's able to kind of take back and come with one run. And I think the one thing that kind of because I do like Tappan Street, Kyle. The one thing that kind of put me over Tappan Street was as time has gone on, it seems like Sovereignty's resume has just gotten better with the races with the horses that he's run against. Charlie's boy Prater came back and won a couple weeks ago. You got Tistastic in there who just won the Arkansas Derby last week or the week before that. Burnham Square, who was the horse that won the Holy Bull, just, he kind of he didn't really show up that day. Whereas Tappan Street, that Holy Bull was kind of been a little disappointing. Yet Ferocious, who was disappointing. Burnham Square came back. I know he improved his buyer, but still was the favorite that day. So I think that was what kind of put me in the Sovereignty camp overall.
Yeah, and I think that's very fair. And obviously, a lot of people are hitting on that. Street Sense was a huge run from him back in October, of course, beating Tistastic, who came back to win last week as well. But guys, again, I could be completely wrong here, and I'm a little biased as I do have a pretty decent Derby future riding on this horse, but I really, really like Tappan Street. And again, it's a little, not really much of a concern, but I found it really interesting that Brad Cox decided on this spot basically like 5 weeks ago. And he's like, nope, we're just going to go straight to the Florida Derby. We're not going to run, Tampa. We're not going to run in the Fountain of Youth. We're just going to go straight to the Florida Derby and take the chances there. And again, you could argue, whether that's good or bad. This is obviously $1 million purchase for Windstar, CHC, and all the big names that come with a horse like this. I just think he's very good. Burnham Square ran him down last time. Probably had every chance to win that race, but he's been working absolutely lights out down at Payson. Hasn't shown a sign of relenting yet. You have Distorted Humor into Mischief. Virginia Key, who is actually a pretty good Philly in her own right when she was running third in the Gazelle at 20-1. Distoradoro has been a decent, obviously running on turf, but Tappan Street has shown the talent, has put everything together, has been working out with other Cox horses, notably, I think it was Patch Adams, excuse me, and he absolutely destroyed Patch Adams in a workout. Obviously, Patch Adams hasn't come back to do what everyone thought he was going to do on the Derby Trail, but still, I think it's very well put that Cox is putting this with his best 3-year-olds, and he's working out way better than them. So I really like Tappan Street. It'll be interesting to see how he shapes out from the 9-hole, especially with Manicat Road right to his inside. I think Manicat Road and Tappan Street, if Manicat Road does take back, I think they'll sit in a very similar position, and it might just be whoever's the best down the stretch is going to win this race. But Sovereignty is going to come from farther back, and if he is fully cranked, he might just be better than the both of them. But it'll be interesting to see how we get on from there. Caleb, I want to end with you here, and I know we're going a little bit over time, so I hope that's okay. I know I told you an hour, but I want you to talk about Neo Equus, because this is a horse that none of us have anywhere, and this is one of the speed horses in this race that's going to control the tempo. And even though we've mentioned about how much pace there actually is in this race, you still think he can hold on for a piece?
Well, I think that the horse is a real talent. Okay, obviously they dropped the rider first out. Let's cross that one out. Then we get a nice win. And how about the 2 seconds to Rated by Merit, who's one of the best Florida-bred colts over probably the last decade. And actually, Rated by Merit had the highest 2-year-old buyer last year, even higher than, your horses that were in the juvenile, even like East Avenue, a 99 buyer. So, I mean, the one was second to one of the best Florida breds we've seen in a long time. Then they lay up, come back, easily went over the slop. Then a real tough ask, going to the lead in the Fountain of Youth at 14-1. And the horse battled hard against River Thames and Sovereignty. Good third, matched the 91 buyer. How about they popped out of the race with a 58-4 bullet? And this is a race where, like, if the 8's taking the blinkers off, the 9's been in cruising mode, the 6, we said, well, Rosario, he goes to the front, he goes to the last. Maybe he pulls back. So it could set up where the 1 for Safi, who's winning every big race, and Zayas has had a coming to life meet, winning from off the pace with Burnham Square in the Holy Bull, and now maybe I'll try to get one on the Florida Derby on the front end. Also wanted to mention Disruptor. This is a key day in the career of Irad Ortiz Jr. Not to speak in hyperbole, but if you look at this key race, Irad's won 2 of the last 4. Look who Irad was also riding. He was riding Neo Equus. He was riding Manicat Road. To some degree, he was riding Jimmy's Daily, and he was riding Cornucopian. So you are taking off a lot of serious horses to ride Disruptor, who is also $1 million horse by Gunrunner, coming off the 9-length win. But I think this is probably Irad playing in the fact that Pletcher's been his go-to guy for a long time. But man, he's passed up on a lot of big-time opportunities on the same day.
I think that's a very, very astute point. Noah, obviously, you also have Disruptor in third. Also should sit a pretty nice trip. It'll be interesting to see where he shakes out, because he has gone to the lead and he has also sat just a half length back. Obviously, melted that field last time out. This is the first time, of course. There's a lot of first times for this horse. First time facing winners, first time going 2 turns, but Gunrunner, Speightstown, obviously Rapoli. Pletcher is a guy, obviously, you would really think he should have 1 to 2 Derby contenders already right now, at least horses pointed towards the starting gate. And he's kind of running out of options here. And this is a big step up for Disruptor. But if the $1.15 million purchase is who people think he is, this could be the coming out party for Disruptor.
Yeah, it's either Disruptor here in the Florida Derby, or I think it's River Thames in the Bluegrass. I think that's where they're going to go there. But I think it's either going to be one of those two that is going to give him not just the best chance, but the only chance, or maybe he can get both of them in. I just thought it was a lot. It's a lot to ask for him to come off of that maiden win, throw him in the Florida Derby. And, you know, that maiden win wasn't that long ago. I mean, it was less than a month. And he's going to have to be really professional to try to maybe sit off the 1 and or 8 if Mike Smith decides to go with the Baffert, and then try to hold off Tappan Street and Sovereignty. It's just a lot to ask, and he's got to be really, really good to do it. Being by Gunner, we've talked about it at length. I think he's probably one you want over the summer at Saratoga, or maybe even the fall.
Yeah, one that might just not be ready yet, at least mentally, but can be one to progress very well in the future. But it's going to be something to look forward to, of course, with the Grade 1 Florida Derby and, of course, many Kentucky Derby implications on the line. Guys, we've talked. Caleb's already hinted his best bets already, but we'll move into best bets right now after, of course, I read out the picks for the Grade 1 Florida Derby. I'm going 9-4-10 with Tappan Street on top. Caleb's going 8-1-10 with Medicat Road on top. Charlie's going 10-8-9. Noah's going 10-9-4, both with the very talented Sovereignty on top. Caleb, like I said, you've already hinted on your best bets, but just to revisit them one more time, race 10, you talked about how much you liked the number 10 Classic Q in that race, hopefully going to the lead. And race number 13, actually 2 horses you think will go to the lead and hold on, probably might be Lone Speeds. Race number 13, the Appleton with a win on the number 4, Portofino.
And that's the key, hoping for a speed favoring grass course. Didn't see an abundance of early speed compared to maybe other times they have the big fields on Gulfstream Saturday. So let's get some horses that are on the rise with maybe some hidden talent and are definitely going to be forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously it could easily happen on a track that has been playing speed favoring as of late. And actually, Caleb, real quick, one of our viewers brought in a very good point that I want to bring to you. Do you think IRAD commits to this horse because of White Abarrio? Because he's committed to White Abarrio?
That could be a really good angle. That could be, I mean, that cornucopian is a tough one to pass, but I mean, you're not going to go to an appointment with a sprinter for a ride or for a trainer you kind of rarely ride for. So it kind of made sense. I will say this about IRAD though. We are in the month, we're coming up on the month of April, and they always talk about Rory McIlroy. He won all these big golf tournaments, but he's never won the Masters. And we're not really queuing that up with IRAD just yet, but there's a lot of Pat Day. There's a lot of Javier Castellano, a lot of great jockeys. There's only one Derby winner a year. So, for IRAD, he really has not been in a position to have a threat late in the Derby just yet. I think that, he had a horse hit the board, was third for Baffert a few years back, Improbable. But other than that, IRAD's really looking for that chance. And maybe Disruptor really is. I mean, the gun runners do move forward at a rate that seems to never stop, but really key moment for him and who he selected.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I just wanted to bring that on because I thought that was actually a very interesting point brought up by Robin in the chat. So, Rob, thanks so much for joining. Thanks for that comment. Greatly appreciated. Charlie, moving on to you. 2 horses you're trying to key around here with 2 doubles. You're going 3-10 with 4 starting in race number 10. And actually, funny enough, I like that best bet. You'll see in a little bit. Love Serere, of course, the number 3 and the number 10 Classic Q, singling Knightsbridge in race number 11 and a race 13, singling Major Dude and going with Medicat Road and Sovereignty to close out that side of your last double.
Yeah, Love Sereve, I think, just makes a lot of sense, is the class of the field, in my opinion. And I think just has the most room for improvement to step up as a fresh face who's only had 2 starts. I think the main concern is naturally going to be that while I talked about that stat that the horses in the first 3 gates are tending to win a lot of that race, it's also horses that tend to be closer to the lead. So obviously going to have to work out the right trip, and we're going to have to see who the jockey is now. And then the 10, I know Caleb already talked a lot about, but for me, if it wasn't for that post, probably would have been my top pick in this race. I think makes a ton of sense. Just the main concern is just going to be having to deal with that post position, but ran into some trouble. And then Major Dude, honestly, I skipped on Knightsbridge. Again, I don't think there's much to say. We talked about that horse a ton. Makes a ton of sense. The big question is just be what Noah touched on. Why is he in this spot so quick off or turnaround? But if he's anything at all, he should win against that field. I think going into, for me, my most likely winner actually of the sequence we covered is Major Dude. I know there's some other talent in that field. I just think he's incredible. He loves it at Gulfstream. He has figures that fit. He's ran against significantly better, and there's just no one in that race that really scares me. I like Ice Chuck a lot, but he's 7 and it's a layoff. And then going into the last race, again, I think a lot of what Caleb said made a ton of sense with Medicat Road. Would not surprise me at all. Not only this one ends up winning, but winning in a way that people aren't used to seeing with Baffert's, where yes, Gulfstream speed favoring, but again, with the blinkers off, this one doesn't need the lead and could easily sit, just off the one, the Safi to the inside, and then go by. And if not, then, the horse who everybody was doubting last time and tried to take every reason to play against, and I blindly, like an idiot, played 4 at the time because of my bias, and it happened to work out for me, is Sovereignty. I think you could argue that there's no better horse in the entire, not just this field, but on the Derby trail in terms of names that this horse has taken. I mean, you talk about a horse, again, was in that massive debut race that didn't get done, but then beat Sandman, beat Tistastic, narrowly lost to Prater, beat others in that Churchill race, and then came back and was dominant at 80% last time out, and you just can't bet against a horse like that who's been so good. And I've got another jockey question for both those two, though.
And especially with a horse that beats Prater, right?
No, lost to Prater by a neck. But if you're even within a neck,
sorry,
of Prater,
excuse me, the Prater beat, of course. Caleb can't tell. That's kind of a running joke around here, how much this guy likes freaking Prater. Either way, Noah, I like that you brought up this bet as your best bet because there's the Tropical Turf Pick 3 that goes around. Keeneland's obviously very well known for it, but Gulfstream also runs it as well. Pick 3, 1, 3. Of course, this is races number 10, 12, and 13. Going 1, 3, Candy Quest, a horse that we didn't get to talk about too much, and Love Severe. And in the second leg, race 12, you have the 1, 4, 6 moving on up, Be My Sunshine, and Breath Away, and a race 13 to close it out. Number 9 and 11. Number 9 being, of course, Major Dude, and the 11 being Ice Chocolat.
I was gonna say, can you guys tell that I'm ready for Keeneland? I got the free bed, I got the hoodie on. I just picked up the media credentials today, so very excited for that next weekend. But yeah, Candy Quest, I'm interested in. I know we didn't talk about her a lot, but I think she is a little interesting. She's one of the 3 Cassies in there. And then the middle leg of the Turf Pick 3, I think it's really tough. You could probably go 5 or 6. I landed on the 3 that I had as my top 3. And then in the last leg, the Appleton, I just think it's really tough to get by 9 and 11. It's probably one of those 2. I'm going to try to not get cute. Maybe I can catch a price of one of the first 2. So very affordable $36 ticket for $3 minimum.
Yep, exactly. And that's correct. The $3 minimum, of course, brings up that base a lot. So good luck with your pick 3, Noah. Charlie already hit on one of my best bets. So, kudos to him, I guess. But trying to build some type of take it around Knightsbridge, hoping to take, a 4 to 5 favorite into what's hoping to be somewhere around a 4 or 5 to 1 shot with this double. Talked about it as Charlie talked about it as well with the number 3, Love Severe, and the number 10, Caleb's top pick, Classic Q. I think it's going to be pretty hard to get around those 2, either with Classic Q on the lead or Love Severe coming from behind into most likely winner in the sequence if he runs his race with the number 4, Knightsbridge. So trying again to build around a horse that's most likely going to win rather than trying to get cute and pick against him. And I talked about at length how much I love Tappan Street, guys. If he gets his trip, I'll probably play him underneath an exacta with a horse like Sovereignty, maybe an Insanity exacta if someone else is taking money, but love him a lot. If he gets the right trip, I think he can be good enough and improve a lot off of those last 2 races. And if he gets the right trip, going to be a pretty square price, hoping to keep my Derby future alive. And I promise it's not the bias that people think it is. Caleb, I want to thank you very much for coming on the show. Greatly appreciate it. And of course, it would be remiss if on the HHH Racing Podcast, we did not bring in the boss real quick to give thanks to you, of course. And he wanted to give his Florida Derby pick as well. So from the Chicagoland area, the boss himself, Mr. Howard Kravitz. Howard, how you doing?
Caleb, how you doing, my friend? Great to see you, Caleb.
I got my Indiana Hoosiers tumbler.
I love it.
We got this new basketball coach, got the new football coach for the future. So been a rough few years for the hoops, but looking promising, my friend.
I've got a best bet for tonight's show, and that is that Caleb was one of our favorite guests by far. I don't think people realize, guys. Caleb worked a pretty big day today. He was on with Gabby. I caught you on FanDuel today, Caleb. He doesn't have to come on. I mean, we know, of course, the check is in the mail from Kyle, Caleb, so for being on the show tonight. But in all honesty, really do appreciate you supporting the channel and coming on. It's people like yourself that are just passionate about the game that do these extra things for little guys like us. I don't think it should go unnoticed at all, how much we appreciate it. So the main reason I want to come on, Caleb, is thank you for being a part of our show. I know you were on Pacific Horseplayers, and we'll get you on the main Picks and Ponies soon too. And I know you're excited for Keeneland for sure coming up.
No doubt about it. You guys have some amazing handicappers. I really enjoy. I've already told you all I listen to more podcasts in my cars than I do music. And also, you guys, consistency is key to keeping the viewers and listeners happy. You guys are very consistent with the analysis, so I really appreciate that. And I'm going to be heading back to Kentucky for the last 2 weeks at Keeneland and in Louisville for the Kentucky Derby. So I'll see you all.
Beautiful. There. I will be at the Derby, sir. So we'll have to talk. We'll definitely hook up there, as well as Matt Miller having his first Kentucky Derby and Patrick Kunzel his first Kentucky Derby. So we'll hook up. Last thing, I just wanted to, I know it's been a long show, guys. This is on the Power Pick tip sheet this weekend. I really like Tappan Street. We don't need to talk too much. I was actually there, Caleb, the day that he broke his maiden. I was on vacation with Charlie. I'm sure Charlie remembers that. He is big. He's big. He's rangy. I have a weird feeling, guys, even though I'm picking him on top, I have a strange feeling he's going to finish second and then be like 16-1 in the Derby and run a huge race. That's the vibe I get. I think it's a pretty tough spot Saturday. It's a really good race. It might be the best Derby prep we've seen this year, along with the Santa Anita Derby coming up in terms of quality. But it's going to be a tough spot. I just love the way he's working. He was working with Saudi Crown, by the way, Kyle. I was listening to the show. He's outworking Saudi Crown. So people can think what they want about Saudi Crown. He's a great stakes animal. So I think if Tapestry gets position on the first turn, Caleb, and everyone else, I think he's got a huge, huge shot in this race. I sort of like your rail pick a little bit, Caleb, maybe more underneath, but Zayas has been sneaky good in these big races, and we don't have to say, how good Safi's been. So I'm hoping, I think your rail horse there in the Florida Derby is a bit interesting, maybe a key horse in second or third, but I'm going Tappan Street, guys. That's it. Oh, go ahead, Caleb.
Well, you mentioned second, third. I wanted to show a new exciting trend for handicappers in the Derby. Okay, so from 2012 with I'll Have Another all the way to 2018 with Justify, we're talking 7 straight years. And that was a big long run of favorites. Those horses had 0 losses as a 3-year-old. Okay, so it was all winners, all favorites. Now, if you let's take out the authentic Derby because it was in September, crazy year. The last 5 May Derbies have all been won by horses off a loss. So, these horses finishing second or third, maybe even further back than that, now look way more live than they did in the mid-2010s.
That's interesting. Hey, I got one more quick question for the whole panel. Right now, the odds of a Baffert winning the Kentucky Derby. You want to do a quick roundtable, Kyle? The odds of a Baffert winning the Derby, or what's the lowest odds you would take on that bet?
Me personally, I wouldn't bet it, but we'll see what happens. I think a lot of people would take that bet at something like 15-1. I think a lot of people would take that bet.
Well, that bet would be a lot lower, Caleb. If it's offered in Vegas, they'd be a lot lower than.
It would be 8-1 or something like that. Yeah, but I wouldn't take less than 15.
I'll take 12.
No, I wouldn't take it.
Caleb, what do you think of Baffert winning the Derby this year?
I'll take the Baffert stock market price crashed on March 1st because on March 1st, not only did we see journalism roll right past Barnes and Rodriguez, but then we saw Sovereignty queue up this huge late rally. And I like Citizen Bull, but we have this old school pedigree method called the dosage index. It's a very simple number. The lower is the better. For years, you need to have a 4.5 or lower. You look at the Citizen Bull has the highest number at 9.0 somehow for the Derby, which is not good. So we had Barnes at like 5-1 in the Derby pool. Well, if you told all those bettors that Barnes was going to go from a 93 buyer to a 102, you think, okay, well, now he's like 5-2. No, he tripled to 15-1 because the closers got involved, journalism, and as well as Sovereignty. So on February 28th, the Baffert price was way different than the next day on March 1st.
Yeah, and I think if Disruptor, I don't know how Noah feels about this, but if Speed gets in this Derby, let's say Disruptor gets in, let's say Speed King somehow runs a big race and gets enough points. This weekend is huge for the pace flow of the Kentucky Derby, in my opinion. I don't know if Noah and Charlie agree with that or not.
I agree.
No, it definitely is. And I would say people with all different types of futures are definitely keen in and hoping that there is a lot of pace. If you have a certain gray looking horse who has Stanley's name, I would say.
Prater gets in. Sorry, Charlie. Who knows? Next week. I'm out of here, guys. I've already blabbed too much. Thanks, Kyle, Caleb. Thanks again, buddy. We'll see you at the Derby in 5 weeks.
See you soon.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks a lot, guys. And then he wanted to come on, of course. The boss got to come on at some point. But Caleb, we really do thank you. I can't thank you enough. Again, we know you have long working days and you don't have to, jump on with us, but we really do appreciate you coming on. But of course, to everyone out there, that will do it for episode 125 of Bettin N Boozin, covering the Florida Derby late pick 5, of course, headlined by the Grade 1 Florida Derby. For my co-hosts, Charlie Freeman and Noah Maher, and FanduelTV's Caleb Keller. It has been your host, Kyle Roscoe. And to everyone out there for Florida Derby Day, crush those bets, win those photos, and stay safe, everyone. We'll see you in the next one. Have a good night.